We are officially in our last few days of 2025, but we are just getting started on leveling up and stepping out of our comfort zone. Welcome to the Find Your Power podcast. I am your host, Avery Jane. And today, in this episode, I really want to touch on acknowledging your accomplishments and successes of this past year, as well as setting true and impactful goals for the next year that will really help you achieve them and not just kind of let them sit around until the end of 2026 when you check back in and realize that you didn't actually accomplish any of those big goals that you wanted to. I also want to talk about why doing this it can be very important. Why marking your accomplishments as well as setting goals for the next year can really help you feel more accomplished as well as be more productive in the upcoming year in ways that you want to be and make the changes that you want to make in your life as well. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know about you guys, but it seems like this year totally just flew by. It feels like a month ago I was celebrating the new year happening. If things feel like they've just flew by for you as well, it might be time to do a little bit of reevaluation as well as setting new goals and intentions for this new year. This is because when time flies by so fast, it's usually because we are in such a set routine on our day to day schedule that the days really just combine together. And that's why it feels like time just passes so fast. But when we are doing new things, experiencing new challenges, and maybe even going out of our comfort zone, the time is going to feel a lot longer than, or maybe extended than it actually is, or even it might just feel like the amount of time that it actually has been. So, if you're feeling like this year really flew by, it's really important to be intentional with your goals for this next year and your plans because when we live to day by day in a very rhythmic routine, it's going to feel very fast paced. So if you listening have that feeling that you are having this same routine every day, maybe you should think about setting some new intentions for this year. Also, a little side note before we dive into the episode, into the meat of it. If you are listening to this episode on the day that it is released, Merry Christmas to you if you celebrate because today is Christmas. I want to start this episode with the accomplishments from this past year. I think it's always good to reflect on the good things that you've done and accomplished, even if it's really big or really small, doesn't matter. Either way, we're growing every year. And I want to talk about why these accomplishments matter. So, it's very important to acknowledge these from the past year. Six little successes, little habits that you either broke or started that is maybe helpful for you. But either way, it's very important to reflect on the year. And some of the reasons why this is the case is you cannot level up without knowing where you started. If you feel like you haven't really grown, maybe think back on where you actually started a year or 2 years ago, 3 years ago. What position were you in your life? Now think back to where you are now, and you may see a bigger change than when you just think, what did I do this year? Also, reflecting on your year or your past years also prevents you from repeating the same patterns or habits that you want to get rid of. And we are no longer repeating bad habits in 2026. We are breaking those and we are stepping into our new up leveling good habits. Even if they're small, even if they're big, it doesn't matter. But you're going to have those good habits coming in this new year. And celebrating wins also just builds confidence and builds momentum. If you are always thinking about what you need to do next, what you need to do more of, what you haven't done yet, your self esteem might get a little bit low. And we always need that confidence boost to help us out sometimes, especially when it comes to jumping into the new year and starting new things, stepping out of our comfort zone. It's not easy to do if you don't have that ego boost. And sometimes we need it. That's okay. So now I want to share some of my personal accomplishments from 2025. I'm hoping that some of these might help you guys out in thinking of what you maybe want to accomplish next year, or helping you reflect on some of the accomplishments that you did accomplish this year or in the past few years. So, for mine personally, I am in college right now. So, of course, my grades and my academic abilities are going to be one of my goals and accomplishments. So, I earned strong grades in the 3 semesters that I had this year because I also took summer classes. So, together it was three. And although I didn't earn the highest grade that I wanted every semester, I still use this as a lesson in which areas I can grow in and which ones I need to work more in. And I think that's very important, even if you don't reach the entire goal that you want to reach, reflecting on the things that you can do and that you did do, and also using those little mistakes as learning curves. The second one is that I feel as though I have strengthened some of my relationships this year. And I also had the goal for 2025 to build new friendships. And I think I really did that as well, especially within my school and within my university. And when it comes to health improvement, I don't think I changed too much, honestly, but I always try to maintain consistency. And I honestly had the goal for consistency from last year. And also, I wanted to let you guys know that I actually did a vision board from last year in 2025. It's actually right behind the camera in this setup. Me and my boyfriend made a vision board in January of 2025, and I think it was very helpful. We just put pictures, we printed out some pictures of things that we wanted to see in our new year and also accomplish maybe as well. And although I didn't accomplish every single thing that was on that vision board, and that's okay, I can add them to the one next year as well. But I think it was also a very good reminder because we both put them up in our room. And it's a very good reminder of the things that are important to you and your priorities so you don't lose track of those throughout the year when things get busy or things get overwhelming. You can look back at that vision board and remind yourself of the things that you find most important, and it helps really when it comes to not clouding your mind over little things that don't actually matter to you, but sometimes in busy moments they may feel like they do matter more. When it comes to mental health, this is something that I think is usually overlooked when it comes to goals and accomplishments just because it's not very visible. You can't see it. But I think it's important one to acknowledge and also recognize for the next year. For myself, I think setting more boundaries for myself personally was one of my accomplishments for the year. And of course, maybe I can do more of that, but I think I did pretty well on it this past year. Getting better at saying no to things that don't feel aligned with me or my goals is also another accomplishment that I'd say I had from this year. And also having creative outlets have helped me a lot. This is a accomplishment that I didn't realize that I needed, and also something that I didn't ask for 2025 in my goals. But it's something that reflecting back, I realized that it really has, I think, helped me a lot. So when it comes to like starting my TikTok account or this podcast or even little things like doing my own nails, things like that have really helped when it comes to having creative outlets because it's really a time to just relax. Sometimes it just lets your brain run free, and I think that it's really important to have those creative outlets every once in a while. I also want to mention that if you have any goals from the beginning of this year that you made from the beginning for 2025 and you still haven't accomplished them, don't be discouraged by that. You do still have a week left if you are listening to this on the day that it is released. And although that doesn't sound like a lot of time, it is enough time to get started on something new. Even if you are pretty busy, this is just something to remind you that you don't have to wait. If you're ready to get started now, just do it and get started. It's always good to also get started on something before the new year actually starts. I actually did a few things this past month as well that were on my vision board and on my goals list for 2025. And in the month of December, I got started on those, and that's okay. It was still 2025. And although I waited, it still happened and I got started. So, whenever you feel comfortable, even if it's not the beginning of the year, whenever you feel comfortable and inspired, you should just get started when you can. So, lastly, when it comes to accomplishments, I wanted to talk about how to identify your wins. So, journaling your highlights from 2025, very good way to kind of track down the accomplishments that you did have and the successes that you did make. Whether those are big or small, it might be helpful to just jot down a lot of the things that you did in 2025, even if you don't necessarily consider them being an accomplishment. And then you can go through and kind of pick out the ones that you really do feel like helped you grow and helped you become a better person that you want to become and your higher self. So you can try this as well as the new year goes. I think it is a little bit easier to do it as the time passes rather than doing it all at the end of the year. But of course, you can do that as well if it didn't happen this year. But maybe going into the next year, that's something to think about is jotting down the accomplishments that you make as you do them, or even just checking in every few months and journaling the accomplishments that you have done and the little things, little habits, whatever you want to call it, that you feel have made you closer to the person that you want to become. When you're doing these journalings, you can ask yourself a few different questions, whether it's at the end of the year or, like I said, every few months. You can ask yourself what made me proud, what challenged me, what improved my life, and this is something I may try as well going into the new year because I don't actually do this now. But like I said, even if it's just a few times a year, I feel it could be very helpful and useful for the end of the year. So I encourage you guys to try this as well with me. And I think it could be a good way to self evaluate. So switching into the goals aspect for the new year, I do want to first discuss something important to touch on is why the New Year's goals fail usually and how we can avoid these common traps. So, the first one is if you're setting too many goals. So, this can lead to overwhelming and then you might get burnout. And you might just end up abandoning every one of your goals because sometimes we get discouraged that if we can't accomplish all of them, why even try to accomplish some of them? But that should not be the case. But that's okay if you find yourself setting a lot of goals. I think it's easier to go ahead and put a little bit in the beginning, and once you reach those in the beginning of the year, then you can continue on and add some more if you accomplish those. That way you don't feel too overwhelmed and then lead to yourself to getting burnt out. Number 2 is setting goals based on trends instead of on your actual life. So you don't really want to focus too much on those aesthetic goals, especially when it comes to social media nowadays. We can see a lot of those type of goals that are or those type of things that say that you need to do to be pretty or aesthetic or to be successful. Rather than focusing on appearance goals, think about the things that actually matter to you internally. And of course you can set goals for your external self as well, but I think it's more important to dive in deep, self-evaluate inside more than externally, if that makes sense. The third one is if you don't have a system for being consistent. It's very important that when you set goals, you have a way that you can build them to be habits and maintain them. If they are little things that you want to incorporate into your life, that is, then you want it to be more like habits that you can maintain and be consistent with. Otherwise, if you just do them for a few times, it's not going to be a set in stone accomplishment for the new year. It will just be something that you touched on and then you lost. So make sure that you build your goals around a system that you will be able to maintain, and not just when you're motivated, because of course motivation is not going to always be there, especially as the year goes on. So build these goals into a way that you can be consistent even when you're not motivated, because these systems is what will keep you going. And the last one is comparing your goals to others. We don't want to compare our goals and we don't want to compare our lives because especially when it comes to social media, I touched on this a lot in the having a simple life episode. The comparison trap really kills your momentum before you even start, because if you set goals and then you find other people doing 10 times more than that goal, you're going to feel discouraged. But it's really important to realize that your life is a totally different spot than their lives, and they started somewhere else than you did, and they're going through other problems and dilemmas that you're not going through, and vice versa. So it's really difficult when it comes to comparison. So I'd say really just try to avoid that overall. Don't go searching on social media for people's goals that you are able to compare. So moving on to how to set realistic goals for 2026. Here is the secret. Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you a few things that are really going to help you here. So, one, you're going to use the level up goal formula. Okay, so this one is going to have three different categories. You're going to have one, a major stretch goal. This is going to be a goal that you grow into. The biggest one. This is going to be the big goal, the one that you really want to accomplish, and the singular one that you really want to accomplish for the new year. Number two, you're going to have two middle level goals. These are things that you could achieve with steady effort, but they're not going to be as hard as pinpoint focus as the one major goal, but they're still going to be relatively challenging to achieve. But with effort, you will be successful in achieving them. And then you're going to do three easy wins. So these don't have to be like so easy. Maybe don't say, I don't know, depending on who you are, but maybe you don't want to say brushing your teeth every day because that's already something that you do. So these are going to be a little bit challenging, but still more like habits, small habits that can build your confidence once you start getting them into your routine. So maybe that is example, if you're trying to cut out more added sugars in your diet, maybe you give yourself the goal or habit of making smaller portions when it comes to dessert or sweet added sugar foods, or maybe giving yourself the option for having those less often than you are now. That's just an example. You don't have to do anything dietary related, but any little small habit that you can think of that you would like to incorporate into your life, you pick three of those. The next tip I have is making your goals more identity based rather than things that you want to do. So, an example of this could be, instead of saying I want to read more this year, saying I'm someone that reads 10 minutes every night. If you really dissect the differences between those, one is saying something that you want to do and it's very general and broad. In saying that I am someone who, that already is developing the identity that you want to become, and that reverses your subconscious and your brain to more develop into that thing that you say that you are. Because our brains don't like having two separate identities of ourselves. We like to stick to one consistent idea. So, also incorporating the part where it says 10 minutes every night really makes it clear and specific on the goal that you want to do. And also, I just finished reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't know if you guys have heard of this book, but if you have and you haven't read it or you haven't heard of it, definitely look into it. It's going to really help you when it comes to making these goals and habits for the new year. And making these goals identity based is a really big thing that he touches on in his book, and it can give you more insight on this if you are interested. The next one is you're going to want different categories for your goals. You don't want to just put them all in one category when it comes to health and wellness and maybe having different diets, because that's going to put too much stress on that area in your life. You want to have three categories on it for a balanced goal setting approach. These are personal, so could include your mental health, your relationships, and your routines. The second one will be professional or academic. This could be career development, GPA, or grades, like I mentioned, or any certifications maybe that you're trying to get for the new year. And the third one is health and wellness. And this may be sleep or fitness or nutrition, anything in regards to that side. When it comes to goals, the last thing I want to do is actually share my personal goals for 2026. And some of these are pretty broad right now. I'm going to likely go back and critique them as well as when I am journaling for the new year and creating my vision board. But this is kind of just a broad area to give you guys an idea of some things that you can set for the new year. And it also kind of just helps me as well get an idea of what I'm looking to do. I would really like to continue to save money while also putting some aside just for the things that matter most to me and I value most in my life. This is something that I already am doing, but it's something I want to continue to do as well, like a habit, and keep this habit. So, something that matters a lot to me is travel. I have a specific account for travel that I put a little bit of money into every paycheck. And that's something that is important to me to do and to stay consistent in doing. If you guys have something that's important to you, maybe it's not travel, maybe it's giving to charity a little, maybe it's sending money to a loved one, maybe it's saving money for a specific thing in your life, like buying a house or a car or something big like that. It's it could be helpful to set that as one of your goals for the new year if you don't already have an account separate for those things. Just so then you know that that money is only for that. And I think it's important if it's something that is important to you and it's something that you value. Another one of my goals for the new year is I want to build consistent habits when it comes to going to the gym and going for walks. At the beginning of the year, I was really consistent with this, but as I've gotten busier within the last few months, I think I fell off of the consistency aspect of it. And that's okay, but I think going into the new year, that's something that I want to bring back. And also getting a better sleep routine, just because I would like to build the habit to wake up earlier in the day. And this will also help me reach some of my other goals because I will have more time in the day. Another one of my goals, this one's very broad because right now I haven't dove deeper into it, but I want to take more initiative academically, and like I said before, I was already having those goals for this past year when it came to my grades and my GPA, but I think going into the new year, I can be a little more specific and intentional with the classes that I need to pay more attention on and be more intentional with the GPA that I'm trying to meet. And I also want to continue to grow my creative outlets, just like this podcast. I want to keep that as a consistent habit that I am bringing into the new year, and I don't want it to fall off. So I am going to put that on my vision board so I can look back at it and remember the things that are important to me and that that is one of my priorities. Actually, now to talk about the secret weapon of it all, how to actually follow through with these goals. So, the first one is one that I've been mentioning this entire episode, vision boards. Now, this doesn't have to be a physical board that you hang up on your wall and you have printed out pictures on. This can also be digital. I've heard a lot of people making vision boards through Pinterest as well. And I think I tried this a year or two ago. I looked for pictures online and photos in my own life that I had that would align with the vision board that I wanted to create. And I believe I really just screenshotted them and put them into a separate album on my Photos app. And you can title that vision board. So it doesn't have to be a printed out section of photos that you have on your room on your wall, although that could really work as well. But it doesn't have to be like that, and you can make it work just the same if you just have digital photos. It's also something Another thing to consider when it comes to making vision boards is that you don't only have to have one. It could be helpful to make different ones depending on your goals for your life and depending on the aspects of the goals that they are. Just like I mentioned before, when it comes to having goals, it's good to have three different categories. So you could always make a vision board for your personal life, one for your career or academic, and one for your health and wellness aspect of your life. Especially if you have a lot of goals that you would like to include, like small ones, then that could be a really useful thing for you to do. There's also other ways that you can do it in making main vision board and then some smaller ones digitally. So the main vision board is going to be the big goals. If you do this way, and this is going to be the one that you put on your wall or the one that you can see every day. It doesn't have to be right in front of your face every day, but it's something that you have access to every day. And another one could be a phone lock screen board. This is important. I actually have something similar to this. I mentioned this in the pep talk episode, I believe it was. When it comes to affirmations and daily quotes, you can put those on your lock screen so you see them every day. I've done this for the past like 3 or 4 years now, and although I don't always read it, it is a good reminder when I do. And this could be considered technically a vision board or maybe aspiration board. And then you can also have a mini desk board, something like just small with small pictures. And this one could be virtual if you have some type of digital picture display. You could use that, or you can do printed pictures. And this could be something that you just put on your desk. So it's motivation while you are studying or working. And I already kind of touched on why these vision boards are so important for you psychologically. It really reminds your brain to be consistent and go in the direction that you wanted to go in when you created these and when you really self evaluated. That way, those little things that keep getting in your way aren't clouding your vision too much. And they keep your goals visible so you don't forget them out or abandon them as easily. When it comes to building small day to day habits for your goals, it's important to never skip 2 days in a row. This is also something that James Clear talks about in the Atomic Habits book. But when it comes to skipping a day, that's okay as long as you pick it back up the day after. You never want to skip 2 days in a row. This makes it more likely for you to abandon the habit. And keeping a consistent pattern of not skipping these 2 days creates consistency without perfectionism. Another point he touches on that also is a really good way to stick with your habits when you are making them is habit stacking. So, this is kind of just attaching one of your new habits that you want to achieve onto an existing one that you already have in your life. This makes it so when you do the activity that you are already doing, such as brushing your teeth, eating breakfast, drinking your coffee in the morning, doing your night routine that you already have, anything in regards to that, if you stack another habit on top of that and you start to do it right before or right after, or maybe even during that habit that you already have, it makes it so you remember more consistently to do those new habits. An example of this could be after I brush my teeth, I stretch for 3 minutes. That way, once you start doing that, you will automatically start thinking that every time when you brush your teeth, you have to stretch for 3 minutes, and it will be less likely that you will forget the stretching goal because you are already likely to brush your teeth. Another way to stay consistent is to do weekly check ins, and this could be every Sunday. You could ask, what did I do well? What do I need to adjust? And am I living the version of me that has these goals? I think personally that when it comes to starting, you can definitely start weekly, but when you start to see similar answers to these questions every week, I think it would be okay to start to just evaluate yourself maybe monthly or bi-monthly throughout the year, because sometimes you might start getting the same answers if you have the same goals that you're just trying to keep consistent with. Another really important thing is having accountability partners. This can be your friends, your partner, family members, or even me. You can DM me your goals for accountability. The last thing I want to touch on is how to track your 2026 growth. So, first, you want to have your monthly wins list. So, these are going to be 3 things that you achieved every month. Then, you're going to do quarterly resets. So, this is every 3 months, and you can reevaluate your goals here, any life changes that you've had or any adjustments that you need to make, because of course life happens and doesn't always happen the way that we expect it to. It usually doesn't happen the way that we expect it to. So, of course, you can make any adjustments here if you need to. And then it's also good to make a done list and not just a to do list. So, this can help you when it comes to assessing your accomplishments. And that also increases your motivation and your confidence because you can really look back on what you have already done, not just want to do. So, wrapping things up, I want to give you guys some reminders that you don't need to reinvent yourself, just refine yourself. So, for the new year, we don't need to completely reinvent our identity, but just adding a few things here and there and critiquing things into your life that makes you the person that you want to be can really help you refine the way that you live your life and the identity that you have, but it doesn't have to completely reinvent yourself or your identity. Remember that these small habits can really have big results. Even if your goals for the new year don't have anything huge, no huge goals, just little small habits that you would like to incorporate into your new year, that's totally okay. And I would maybe even consider doing that for myself as well, just because many little habits that you might incorporate can lead to big results and big accomplishments as well. And if you want a different life, you do have to show up and you do have to put the work in to be a different version of yourself. You guys probably already heard this quote so many times, but if you want change, you have to make a change. You can't just expect something to happen, something to change when you are going through the same motions that you have been doing for the past year. I am choosing to make a personal mantra for the upcoming 2026. If you guys want to do this as well, it may be a really good idea. This could also be more like an affirmation, but mine for this year is going to be act like the person that I am becoming. So you guys can use that one as well, but just reminding myself that maybe I'll put that one on my lock screen as well. It can be really important to have an affirmation or a mantra for every month or week or year, even depending on what you want to accomplish or who you want to become. And I also want to encourage you guys to DM me your goals. Like I mentioned before, I can help be your accountability partner. We can share our goals back and forth with each other and check back in if you'd like, but only if you want to. So that about wraps up everything for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. And I want to remind you guys again, stay positive and everything will fall into place as it's supposed to be. If you're feeling stuck right now, like I always say, it's not a forever thing. You're also not alone, and everyone has gone through stagnant moments in times in their life, and they have gotten through it just as you will now. Tune in every Thursday to listen or watch on YouTube or Spotify. I am also now on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible for audio only. And make sure to check out the Instagram or TikTok at findyourpower_podcast. And you can DM me through either one. Thank you guys again so much for listening. I appreciate you all for tuning in today. If you enjoyed, please rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify or Apple. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you're watching through the YouTube, it will be really helpful if you subscribe and like the videos there as well. If you guys have anyone in your life that you think may benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. We do not gatekeep here, and maybe they will thank you later. And lastly, if you'd like to be featured for an interview, you can send me an email at the email linked in the podcast description on YouTube or Spotify, or you can shoot me a DM and we can talk through there. I will talk to you guys again soon, and don't forget, we will find your power.